Pain. C.S. Lewis has a whole book on the problem of pain. Pain is a signal given by the body. It's rather like the new computerized cars that we have. Something comes up on the dashboard. It can be very precise, or it can be a simple message to check something out. It's a signal that there's something wrong. Alas, it didn't come up when I had a blowout some time ago, and the result could have been fatal. Normally, things do show up beforehand and were kept from further disaster. Some time ago, I was talking to a priest friend who had had to report, unfortunately, this tragic scenario somewhere in the States. A priest friend of his had just been involved in a funeral. They were young Catholic lads who had taken a car, which wasn't theirs, for a joyride, and they wanted to go on this highway, which seemed a perfect place for getting maximum speed. But this gentleman knew that the road actually wasn't finished properly and wasn't safe for that kind of speed, and he tried to wave them down before they went off, and they poked fun at him. A few minutes later, they were in eternity. A warning can be a grace, even though it might hurt. But then we can, alas, use this faculty that we have and abuse it to create coercion on people. It can happen not only actually on the physical, but also on the mental. We can coerce. It can be painful to be living, for instance, in a situation of community life, wherever it might be, where there is psychological coercion going on, bullying no less, bad treatment of brethren or sisters. It can happen. Let's not be in any illusion. Even in places orientated towards the service of God, it is known that things can go terribly wrong on the level of human relationships and even of authority. Indeed, we have it in the diary of St. Faustina that the Lord was going to close certain communities because he wasn't being served properly. That is surprising at that stage in Poland. One would think that would not be the case, but there's nothing new under the sun. And so it was that the wars saw many convents closed. The war, there was a great increase in the amount and the concentration and the intensity of pain during the war. It's not that far away from us in time. Torture was used to obtain information. We know that. We know some of the details, unfortunately. Now, when it came to the eventual resolution of the second conflict, the Second World War, it could have been very different. The forces of the Axis had superior power militarily. So there was only one way that the British and the Allies could actually win out. It was through intelligence. It was very well planned and thought out. Nothing was spared as regards the preparation. We know now some of the ways in which it was done. There was, for instance, in the bush in Italy, a very interesting scene at one point when the British intelligence had a brilliant idea. They gave false information to Germany via Italy by getting a body, I believe it was that of a young man who had been executed, a Welshman, I believe, and they put him in the water with all that a soldier would have on him, including love letters or whatever, and documentation, including, now this is the interesting bit, something which was obviously an important bag with a message for such and such. And it was this message that the British forces, the Allies, were preparing to make a strike on the other side to get at Germany through Greece. They were going to invade there and push in on that side. It's very similar actually to what Churchill had in his mind, the project of the Dardanelles in the First World War, which of course was a disaster and involved Australia and other forces. However, this body was discovered, and because it had been so well prepared, everything had been made to look very convincing. It eventually got through the German intelligence to the very top, the Führer. There had been some hesitation on the part of those in the intermediary process because they thought this could be a hoax. But Hitler swallowed it, lock, stock and barrel. And the result was that a large number of forces were kept, uselessly obviously, in Greece, while this big attack then was able to go from the sea into Italy at that point and push even further towards Rome and further north. And at the débarquement, that had been very, very, very well prepared. Unfortunately, it's rather a painful episode in British history, but it worked. And what they had done was this. They knew that the only way that they could actually hope to get through that very well defended part of Normandy was to get Hitler to think that it was going to be only a decoy, that the real débarquement was going to happen in where it was supposed to happen, logically, in Pas-de-Calais, which is closer to Dover. And so what they did was this. They gave information to some of their key, well-trained young members, the British now, and parachuted them into places of high risk. Now, they knew the consequences, unfortunately, that some would be caught and interrogated. And you know what that means. Many would be very strong and would die rather than betray and give any information. But one or two might not. And actually a way of doing it was this. They gave them also a tooth which contained poison in it, and all they had to do under torture was to swallow this tooth, and the poison was released, and the death would follow immediately. But when one or two were caught and tried that under torture, and it didn't work, that is, it wasn't in there, then they would be inclined perhaps to talk. So it seems that is what happened. And the result was that the information which was ultra secret, and in which they believed, filtered through the German intelligence to the Führer, who believed it. And it was that the real débarquement was going to be in Pas-de-Calais. And therefore he kept his great panzer divisions up there, which considerably weakened the defence, although it was very strong, very superior. But had there been tanks at the débarquement from the German side, they would not have got through. So it was a key element in the debate. It worked, but what happened to those poor men who were tortured until the information could be got? There is a testimony which one can see of a lady who was conscripted into teaching Mandarin in one of the concentration camps where Muslims and so on are re-educated in China, and she describes in some detail how it was done and how there would be in the class violent scenes because now and again the guards would come in and take this one and that one and they would disappear. And then when she would be eating, she would hear groans and screams in the distance and cries for help and words like stop, 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 stop. They couldn't bear it. The pain, the torture was atrocious, and she had to eat while that was going on and hear in the distance the groans and the screams. Man's inhumanity to man. When just ordained, I was sent back to Rome, and I was living for a while with the Merino missionaries in their college, which was very close to the university. And close to us was what had been the headquarters of the Gestapo. And outside were plaques, reliefs indicating what had been going on there, erected by the Italians, lest we forget. And one could see, actually, with one's eye, the bottom part, the basement, which had very narrow openings, windows, and one knew that down there things had gone on. And as I was coming back from university to the Merino College, one day I paused, sat on the wall close to what would have been the torture chamber, and heard, as it were, the groans and screams lingering in the air. Man's inhumanity to man. What we can do to each other, psychologically and physically. We can become similar to the angels by goodness, or to the demons by evil. But of course, for those who are tortured to death, the last bit is the release. But what of those who cause the pain? That is true of psychological pain, spiritual pain, moral pain, but also physical pain. It may give the appearance of strength to be able to cause pain and obtain control over others. But it often comes from those who are actually afraid. And secretly, they're slightly afraid also of the long-term consequences, because they can't sleep peacefully. They're afraid of themselves and what they've done. There's no peace in the depth of a person who has caused deep pain and knows it. Gestapo. What silent cries yet echo in the air, where pain was great where hating was all foul with newly mastered mirth. For there, in that dark nether cell, did demons prowl and chuckle at a broken hominide, a morsel of a man, than which no fly was ever better crushed. For angels sighed hard by this little place that rent the sky. O souls now free from manifold device and engine of high hell, how well this noon do you this gloom recall, and when the vice of hardest pressing skill, the craved boon of will's unconquered snapping, did in turn, by one more turn, unveil